Hi, this is Scott with etrailer. Today we're taking a look at and installing our Curt 4-pole wiring for a 2024 Chrysler Pacifica. The 4-pole wiring for your Pacifica is a good idea if you ever plan on doing any kind of towing with your Pacifica, or you do have any kind of accessories that have lighting on them. Like a lot of your bike racks or cargo carriers do have optional lighting with them, so it's nice to have your 4-pole wiring all set up. This is a really good setup, and you can get an optional mount where you can mount this right to your hitch, and so that's a really nice thing about these. And it's going to come with this cover that's going to help keep dust, dirt, and water out of your connection. So this is just going to cover this up to where all you have to do is just pop this over your wiring and just get that over it, and then you can line this up. Now you've got a waterproof connection. Another thing I like about this 4-pole wiring kit for the Pacifica is this plugs right in. You don't have to splice into your existing wiring, and it's really not too hard to do. So if you just want to stick around, we'll show you how we got it installed. To start our installation for our wiring, we're going to need to get our taillight housings out, and with a T30 star bit or Torx, we're going to go ahead and get our screws removed. With those out, we can just pull back on our tail light, get that to pop out. Now we'll have our wiring in here. Pull that back. Now we're going to have a red clip. Pull back on the clip, push down on the clip just in front of that. Now we can separate that and get our taillight housing out of the way. Now we're going to need to get our wiring in place, and our yellow wire and the brown wire are going to come up through our driver's side. So what we're going to do is a fish wire technique, and what that is, we just have some plastic tube that went down through all the way to the bottom, and what I'm going to do is just tape off my plug. I kind of straighten it out so it doesn't hang up on stuff as much. Now I'm just going to tape off the end of my fish wire that comes from underneath. Tape it up with some electric tape. That'll hold it in place. I like to run around the end up this way. That way it doesn't have much of a tendency to get hung up. Another nice thing to do is just leave a little tail of that and just kind of ball that together. That way you've got something to take that off when you go undo it. It doesn't get stuck down. But now, after we've done that, we'll just take our wire and guide it up underneath. Then we can start working it up through the channel behind our fascia. So I had to wiggle it around a little bit, but finally got it to break loose. Now I can just pull that up and through and undo my fish wire. Get that undone. Now we're going to have our ends. We're going to have our male and female ends. We just want to match up where our slots are. Get that clicked into place and relock that with our red tab. Now we'll just route our green wire with the 2 plugs on it over to our passenger side. Just run them through and just get them to where they need to go. We can always come back through and tie them up and secure them later. Now on our passenger side, now that we have it routed over, we're just going to use the same procedure we used for our driver's side with our fish wire technique and our electric tape. Now to get our green wire up through, we did have to pop loose our fascia just a little bit because it got jammed up in there. So we did have to pop it loose around the side and around the back just to get that to come through. But now we have it up and through, and we just made our connection like we did on our driver's side. We just plugged in our one end of our harness into our our harness that goes to our vehicle itself, and we just tuck that down in, and this will be the side that will run up to our brake light housing. After we got our green wire ran across, it is a little bit short, so we're going to have to find a good place behind our fascia to get this mounted up. So for now, what we want to do is we'll just go ahead and get our ground figured out, and we'll get our power wire extension hooked up, and then we'll worry about mounting our box here in just a little bit. All right, now we want to get our extension wire attached to our black wire. So I have a heat shrink butt connector, and these do not come in the kit, but I do recommend getting some of these here at eTrailer. These are really good for giving you a waterproof seal around your connection. And just want to get that crimped in place. Now for our extension wire that comes in our kit, we're going to need to strip the end off of that. I'm just going to use my wire strippers and get the end of that stripped off. Just want to twist our wire a little bit. Now we'll insert that into the other end of our butt connector and get that crimped in place. Now this wire we're going to be running forward underneath of our vehicle all the way up to the front and under our hood to our battery. So for now, what I'll do is I'll just get my heat source and get this shrunk into place. Now with my heat gun, I'll just heat up my ends until they get shrunk around my wire. And what we're looking for is the bubbles to come out of there, at least get most of them out. And you'll see it seal around it and get a little more transparent. And we're looking for gel to come out of the end. That's how we'll know we have a good seal. Now for our white wire that comes out of our control box with the ring terminal on it, we want to ground that. So I'm going to look for a good place right up here on the body. I'm either looking for a double thick layer of sheet metal or a nice thick piece of metal to go into. So right here, I'm just going to run my self-tapping screw that comes into the kit. That's going to give us a really good solid ground. With our ground all set up and in place, now we can go ahead and run our power wire all the way forward. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find a good path that keeps us on the driver's side, because that's the side our battery's on our vehicle. And we're going to just run it up to where we're keeping it away from moving parts of our vehicle and also hot exhaust. And we'll just tie it up along the way underneath, and we'll bring it up underneath of our hood to our battery. When we get that all done, we'll show you how we did it. To mount our box up, I found a good spot. The way it happened is with our green wire that got shortened up from running it across, it pulled our box over. So what I did is I had a factory wiring harness that ran across the back of our vehicle, and it's pretty sturdy. So what I did is I just ran a wire tie through the front part of it where the mounting screw would go, wrapped that around our harness, and then I took a longer one that comes in the kit and went all the way around our box and our harness itself. That gave it a nice solid mounting. So now what we did is we took our power wire, we ran it up over our hitch, ran it up beside, and we kind of came up over our rear cross member and brought it over and started running it up through the center of our cross member. Now the reason we did that is because we have moving parts here that we don't want to get any of our wiring into. So I like to run it up and over and then kind of tie off here in the middle so none of our wires can go anywhere. And once we get past this point, we're good to go as far as moving parts. And then we came around over beside our gas tank and tied off, and then ran up beside it, and then ended up going up towards the front. And then right back in here, we came out beside the tank, came up, tied off. We have some plastic holders here that hold up our wiring, so I ended up going up into that with it, ran that up, over, and kept following our steel line all the way forward until we came up to our firewall. Now where we came up, we can see our black wire. We ran that up, tied off to some lines, and up here we want to make sure we're staying away from exhaust and any kind of moving parts again. So we kind of want to run up the center of the firewall and keep it back towards the firewall as much as we can. Then we ran our wire up and then up over and towards the battery. Now we'll come back through and get our tail lights put back in place. Just want to plug in our connector just like we would our factory wiring. We hear a good audible click. Now, one thing we discovered when we were trying to get our housing put back in place is when we have this where it was from the factory, this lower plug ends up getting in the way and won't let us get our housing put back in place. So what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to push that down, and then I ended up having to snip off where our wire goes to the back of our housing. And then I ended up having to push both of these plugs down. And then after I did that, that allowed me to get my housing popped right back in place. Now we'll follow that procedure on the other side. Now that we have our tail lights in, we'll move to the front of our vehicle and we'll get ready to connect our power. So we have our fuse connector that comes in our kit. So what I'm going to do is get that crimped in place. Get that good crimp, make sure we have good connection. Now we need to get our ring terminal put in place. That comes in our kit as well. Just want to get that crimped on. Now that we have that crimped, we have our power wire that we brought forward from the back of our vehicle. Just want to get an end stripped off of that. Now that we have that, we'll take our butt connector and get that crimped on to our power wire. Now I'll take my heat source and heat up and shrink up my butt connector. Now what we did is we have our cover here for our battery, and I did just pop this out of the way. This just simply, you just lift up on this and pull this back, and that will get moved out of your way so you can access your battery. Now we'll just pull this open, and inside of here we did test this and made sure that everything in here does have constant 12 volt. So what I'm going to do is just take a 10 millimeter socket and just remove this one nut from underneath of our panel, and that's where we'll make our connection for our wiring. Reinstall our nut and then we'll tighten that down. With that tightened down and everything all hooked up, we can go ahead and insert our 10 amp fuse that comes in the kit. Now we'll go ahead and test our lights with the tester and make sure our trailer wiring all works. So now we have our lights on. We'll do our left turn. We'll do a right turn. We'll do brakes with right turn and brakes with left turn, and all of our lights are working. And that was a look at our Curt 4-pole wiring for our 2024 Chrysler Pacifica. I'm Scott with eTrailer, and thanks for watching.